just really haven't seen much. It's been kind of, I guess, flying under the radar, per se.
Yeah, we've, I believe, if I remember correctly, we've seen it like 2 or 3 times. And right now, the way it's used is either to like just go full send on people inside of retail row, because then you can kind of farm the pylons there, farm all those cube monsters very quickly and efficiently, or you kind of sit in a build and then you edit a roof piece off, fire out the rockets, and then re-edit here. Sykes is going to find one of the 2 eliminations, and they're trying to track down another one if possible. It looks like Hubo has one of the enemies there. They're going to drop down. Not today, Red Boy. Not today.
That was just too easy for them right there. Stomping the yard, bringing down the build fight. Oboe was holding it down, but it was not enough here. As they walk away with a couple of elims, and they're completely capped out at this point now. Now they just have all the time in the world to heal up. They have the material source just from getting those knocks. That's going to be able to kind of replenish their pool. And it's only Zone 1. And there's already 70 players left in the lobby. So this lobby, unlike the others, has actually chopped down pretty quickly. It's because they're getting into their groove at this point. This is Game 6 of Heat 2.
Yeah, so this is pretty much, remember, the Heats are in games of 6, right? So when this happened this morning, this is it. This is the player's last opportunity. So if they're down on points, they're looking to qualify. Remember, for this region, it is top 12 that move on. So they're trying to rack up as many points as they possibly can. So they just like have to say, look, cards on the table, we just have to go in. If something goes extremely well, we can potentially strike up in top 12 and move on. Or if it all goes wrong, you know, we may be outside of the range, but we need to make something big happen, and it needs to happen right now.
That takes me back to the World Cup qualifier days when Nate Hill and Funk came up out of nowhere with only a game or 2 left. From a 30-point, I believe, and they climbed their way all the way up to like 60 or 70, pulling them all the way through to the final. So anything can happen here in these Fortnite games, really, when you put your mind to it. Sometimes the stars just align for you, really, and big plays happen. So big build battle out in the distance here, Zeke. This is your worst nightmare. Brute coming in. You don't want to be up top. You really don't even want to be here at this point, because the rain of fire is going to start coming in now. And that is, for starters, a 50 shield pop right there. And it's Hunter, Prime, Miner, and Unique all going toe-to-toe here.
And
Hunter's already down. Prime's out.
That's it. Well, Sundown, how right were you on those predictions, my friend? Actually, he's very correct.
He's still
he's
correct.
Really good at his job. But yeah, that the Sam remaining duo there was picked up in the crossfire, and now they're looking to try and track down the last few players. That laser designator coming out telling you, hey, rockets are inbound toward you. You might want to make a move as quickly as possible. The thing about the Brute is, don't forget, it is like, if you just beam it down, you can either laser out one of the drivers, which is the top, or the one in the legs. But look, I mean, just them focusing down, they've already destroyed 500 HP from the Brute. So if you literally just turn it down and laser it, it's going to just blow up, right? And that's the thing is, I think people haven't quite like adjusted to the fact like, oh, you can actually just beam this thing down, right? Because your first intent is like, I just got to get away from it. It's like, no, literally just look at it and beam it down. I'm telling you, like, even with a minigun, you'll just shred it.
You'll see that, like, on NA East or a lot of the other competitive regions, especially the European and North American regions, they see a mech on the field, they turn, they alter. The server almost unanimously decides, hey, we're gonna fire at that.
Get
that out of here. Yep, and that's kind of the kind of focus fire you need. In situations like this, when, like you said, that team was running, they paid the price. Lost the player immediately. The team on the mountain was firing down. Had they all just focus fired, that thing would have been gone.
Right.
These players would have been exposed, and it would have been a 2v3, right? Because, look, their third is so far away. He's over here still working on the builds and stuff, looking for loot.
And we did eventually see the Brute go down, right? Because it was that team up high that did eliminate the Brute. But like you said, man, if it had just gone a little bit faster, those guys had just said, we just need to do this thing right now, it would have worked. Now look at this, though. This trio, the Lil Trio, they're trying to get their way up right now. iXon is trying to go
Lil
for
Fly, Lil Daddy, Lil Exxon.
There you go.
You gotta love it. Just a bad player gets knocked right there.
I mean, look, it's not a bad player because you made it to the Heat, so you're pretty dang good. You gotta change your name, all right? Come up with some new names, and we'll circle back to you. But yeah, they're going for height, trying to isolate and eliminate this team if possible. But looking at the minimap monster, there's still I mean, there's a trio down by the ravine here. If they decide they want some of this action, we've even seen one of the little triangles looking. You know what? It's not worth it.
We're looking over, but Exxon actually threw that shield bubble down, giving them a little bit of breathing room. And if I'm not mistaken, whatever team was climbing up there, unfortunate for them, but they went up and one player got a heavy snipe, and then the bad player was shot down. Not to call him a bad player, but
that
just a bad player. That's your name, buddy. Yeah, he was shot down by the AR. So the focus fire really not going in their favor right there. They came up at the wrong time and paid the price for it. But here we have Exxon just chilling up above. Whatever threats that were lingering about have now moved out, and they're chilling. They're doing really good for themselves. Zone 2 underway, going into 3. The storm's already moving. They have to roll too. They're not safe just yet.
Yeah, I mean, they doesn't look like they have anything in the means of mobility. They're great on builds, though. Almost capped off, just missing some of that wood material there. But we can't even see where the new safe zone is. If you look at the bottom right minimap, once you can start to kind of see the edge of that circle, you're like, okay, I don't actually have to go that much farther. But right now, we still can't even see it. So this circle must be, it's got to be far.
It's got to be just past. There it is. You saw a little snippet. So it's there. It's not too far. I think Exxon will probably eat a little bit of the zone pressure here.
Yeah.
For kind of biding time, getting materials. But it's more important to have those materials anyways. You kind of need them. So I don't blame them. Now jumping over to Baguette, IOV, and Cursive. They're actually in the best spot possible right now. You saw the team we were just keeping up with, the little homies down on the river over there.
The little homies.
The little homies.
There it is.
Do you remember? Do you ever remember those little homies? That was like a real reference.
Wait, you talking about like the actual, like the toy, the little homie?
Yeah, they were the little, you put a quarter in, you kind of roll for them.
Yes, I do. But people,
I had so many of those.
But see, people that are much younger than us have no idea what we're talking about.
We're so old, Zeke.
We're so old.
And we look alike.
There you have it. There you have it. Cursive, what in the world?
Nice
so
shot.
Don't forget, this Crix was Six, was one of the people in that brute we saw earlier.
Yeah.
And now look, he's like, hey, give me an opportunity. Let me just beam your face off. There you go. He got the opportunity.
Taken right out, and oh man, all these players are trying to get this freebie pass here with that launch pad. But another player goes down. It's going to be Trigger QQ Unique. He's going to get taken out. Cursive putting monstrous pressure up with the scoped AR, which a weapon we just do not see shine enough. And it's gotten so many changes, so many great changes. They increased the damage on it. It no longer has damage drop off. It's 100% accurate. It's actually a fairly useful rifle, especially for long range like that. You can chip away at players. You see the marking coming out perfectly as well, just letting his teammates know, hey, I hurt that guy. This guy's shot right here. He's doing a really good job controlling the field here.
And the thing is, at least I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the reason we don't see a lot of the scoped AR is because the infantry rifle kind of does the same thing, but the infantry rifle is more useful at close quarters, right? Because when you scope in with the AR, you're not going to do that at point blank, and the crosshair is way too big to try and take that engagement. But if you point blank someone with the infantry rifle, which everyone can do, because like this is the very best of the best, right? That's where all these flick shots come out. They're going to hit you for 80 plus damage right to your face, right? So I think that's probably why he has that scoped AR. If he probably could find an infantry rifle, he might opt to swap it out. And maybe this player loves the scoped AR because I think it's a great weapon. But that's probably why we don't see that weapon as much as we probably should.
Yeah, you're right. The infantry rifle, and it just hits harder, right? You know, why hit for 26 when if you're going to peak like that, he'll hit you for 41?
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Like, yeah, you don't get the zoomed in scope, but I mean, if I just put this crosshair over that pixel and I get that damage number,
which they do.
They don't miss. That's why they are here. That's why they've made it to these heats, and they're looking to make it into grand finals. I mean, this is the very best of the best, man.
We're chiseling it down right here, but nice heavy snipe attempt right there. He's not going to quite connect. Now here comes a rotation.
You can get this. You can get
he's
this.
waiting.
Focus.
The strafe. You stand still. You eat the bullet. It's Cursive who goes down. Little Exxon here lands a monster shot. He's now trying to knock him off that ground right there. See if he can force that player down to convert on the elimination here, Zeke.
That's crazy. On Cursive of all people, like, we just left him beaming players left and right. Like, you cannot stand still. You just cannot. We call that gargoyling. You cannot sit there like a gargoyle and stand still because these heavy snipes will come out. They will drop you every single time. And that's what our little homies just did. I tried not to laugh. I really did. Oh, gosh. Anyway, that's what Exxon did. He was like, you waited, and you saw the patience, right? Because he could have taken a shot at any moment, but he said, look, this guy's gonna stand still. Cursive will make the mistake. I'm just gonna wait. And sure enough, it happened.
That's right, and man, they managed to pull that revive off, which you really only see in trios, right? Even though they tried to full send, just one person playing defense is just good enough to kind of hold out and get those saves off. So lucky for them, Cursive is going to be able to pop his minis there. You saw him; he's still in the running here. But we have a battle now on the Storm line back here. EG's under fire right now. They're still 3-1 in this situation. It's one tap, boom, who gets hit with a big shot right there, puts him right down.
And another one, a follow-up to Dev there. That was okay, Tormund. Those flick shots were out of this world.
Wait a second, was that did he no-scope him in the face? Like, what just happened right there?
Dude, honestly, I blinked and I missed it. That's how good ME is. But, dude, look at this loadout right now. So this is what we kind of talked about, right? So similar loadout to what we saw from Cursive. The difference is he is rocking the legendary infantry rifle instead of that scoped AR. So, you know, your loadout's very much going to dictate what you can and can't do. And right now, Tormund has a lot. Okay, I was about to be like, bro, did you just
like
body shot that?
That looked like
that would have been so dope. Close. Very close, though.
Very, very close indeed. So they're facing up a tough rotation here. They have a long way to go. There's a team perched up on the high ground, team to the left, team based up in front of them, one down in the ditch below them. This is a struggle of a rotation. I mean, they do have shockwaves, and look, they're looking at the extra mass. They're looking at the extra trap in the zone like, hey, buddy, is it worth it? Like, we kind of need this. Okay, lucky for them, they do have a launch pad. They're going for that immediate launch pad play. Have to hug the mountain right here. There it is. They're going to go in and block that line of sight just a little bit, and lucky for them, they do not get the focus of the server as they make it across the river here now.
But look on the little hill there that was on their left. Obito Nightmare and their third partner is here. They are here ready to potentially take another win if possible. Now, these guys are already sitting on 4 eliminations, which, by the way, 4 eliminations halfway through your game in a server like this speaks volumes in itself. Like, it's either one of two things, right? They had that early drop, they contested a team, and they eliminated them, or what we saw is they said, you know what, it's almost late game, we're moving it in there, let's try and make a pick. They do have the double heavy snipe and the rocket launcher monster. They can make some plays.
That's right. With the heavy sniper, with the RPG, it actually looks like they're poised up for one right now. There goes the heavy snipe to open up a box right there. They find a brute. In comes the shots. They just want to expose that brute, get as much damage in it as possible. And that's a 121. That's going to connect with 2. Exactly, 2 different players right there. That's huge. That team is going to be in a world of hurting. In comes the RPG. Heavy snipe play right there. Cracks it right open. LX KBR goes down. In comes another rocket, and they just wipe that entire team up.
But see, that's the difference, right? Earlier on in the match, we saw the Brute kind of terrorizing a few different trios. But this is exactly what you want to do. I quickly identified that's a Brute. And look at that. They just immediately destroyed that entire trio almost effortlessly, right? Like, the only thing they really traded was a few AR rounds, which looking at just Pro here, Lax, he's got almost 800 rounds of AR, completely topped off on rockets. He used, I think, 4 rockets back there, if I remember correctly, all to just pick up another trio. Like, that's huge, and that's just going to continue to propel him. It's also going to remove that Brute from play. So, because if that had gone into late game, that would have definitely devastated the battlefield.
You also got to appreciate the team that was above him was like, hey, the guys below us have RPGs and heavy snipers, by the way. Let's get out of here. They launch pad it right. Yeah, they launch pad it right out of there. Like, dude, I want nothing to do with this. So off they went, and now they get a free launch pad. We like to call these the community launch pad. Sharing is caring in the situation here where they get that freebie rotation. Anyone nearby gets to kind of skate on out of there as well. And here's a look at your server. As you see, there's still a couple of faces to look out for here. Ranger, Nightmare, and Obito we saw pop off just a bit ago. Ranger really making some big plays here. Looks like he's contesting for the high ground. He's trying to use that distraction of the team that was battling there, and it's going to work out. They're gonna get this high ground. The shockwave is going to come up. Is it going to be enough? Doesn't look like it. Things are going to pause up a bit here. These Rangers still, they're very high, though. His boys are battling here, Zeke.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really have the loadout. Like, unless he has, like, I was going to say the only thing he can do is shockwave here, but, I mean, or just catch Mood completely off guard. That is a 100 to the back of his head, and they're going to drop him and find potential more loot. There is an edit peek going on, and there you go. See ya later. I'm so sorry. I'll just see myself out here. See, I did it twice.
Later, taken out right there by the MES boys. That was actually.
We got our jib
really
operator
intense.
over here, Nicole. She's dying. She's dying. I got one person to laugh. We did it, boys. All right.
Was it worth it, Zeke?
Yes, it was. It's always worth it. Ranger and Obito here. Now, the question is, did Nightmare go down, or is he just lower somewhere else? Okay, so Nightmare is actually down. Ranger has 4 eliminations, and Obito is the 1. So that means it's just going to be them for the rest of the game, because there's no way you're getting a revive off at this point in the game.
Look how high up they are as well. They're so high up right here.
Really
They only
scary.
have 1 shockwave.
This is too scary.
But, I mean, they got the elims while on the high ground, so you know they just replenished a ton of material. The question is it enough?
Oh,
no,
God, the rocket!
It's not enough.
No, the rocket, you gotta let...
Yep, there it is. They saw it coming. He shockwaves right off. He still manages to land on high ground, and more shockwaves are now coming out. But him and his duo that remains from this trio here are left alone to battle this server out.
And Ranger had a shockwave that he used to get much further down, so they're very far apart right now. But Ranger's doing okay, just took a big hit, and his shield got chunked down. They have to try and regroup if possible, but I mean, everyone else in the lobby is onto what they're doing. Now, he's going to find Baguettes here, his deliciousness, and he's going to try and get some of that potential loot. More shockwaves are coming through, so now he can try to make more plays. The question is, where is Ranger? Like, Obito's making a play for high ground again. He's like, look, I don't know what you're doing. I've got to try and get back up to high ground. Because of that, Ranger falls, and now look, Obito has unfortunately launched himself behind everyone. No shotting gun can help you there. It's a tough life to live, but the game keeps on rolling. Brooke, is down there on no HP. Gentle is here, kind of on the safer side of the circle. But look, Monster, across the board, everyone is in critical condition right now.
The server just got melted. I don't know what happened, but that zone wave was absolutely devastating to most of the players that remained in this lobby. Shockwaves are now popping off right here as Power GNTL, Power Gentle is trying to hold it down, trying to stay in the running here. He has 1 shield bubble remaining. If he uses it, he can't fire up. If he doesn't use it, he kind of goes down without it. It could be the difference in keeping him in the game here. He's going to run for the mats. There's going to be huge mats. He actually didn't have any up until that point. There's a minigun. There's an RPG right next to him. He's going to focus the RPG player instead of using that to his advantage here. So now he's left in a 1v1 situation. He did get 1 material off of that. That's all he has. Can he connect? Zeke here. He has 1 more shot to make, and he does connect. Not Weevil falls in the final moments. Gentle somehow pulling it all together, making the right decision to hit in his shots.
That is absolutely insane. With no materials, constantly having to scavenge. Gentle there made it all work in his favor. And don't forget, that was one of the trio we saw in the very beginning that started the game with the Brood. So they still play second because of that. Still points to be divvied out. For now, we're going to go back in the studio with Sundown. Sundown, what you got for us?
Thank you so much, Zeke and Monster. And what I got will be some highlights from that last game we just saw, and then the final results from Heat 2 of the Middle East. So we'll see who's going to round out the second half of that roster in the grand finals tomorrow. But first, let's take a look at some of the action that went down and what led to the final moments. So first, we're hopping on board. We saw Thunder Carl have a great game previously with those Rockets in the last game. Got to watch him break that down, having a very strong early game here, able to put to work with that recently unvaulted TAC SMG, the high rate of fire just ripping apart. You can see Reed able to follow up right away, putting the 2 tactical weapons to great tactical use there, cleaning that one up and closing out the fight. Now, we talked about kind of the limited weaknesses the Brute has and how it can kind of affect it right here. You're third partying somebody who's already at multiple levels. There is no way they're going to be able to turn and react. That is basically free mowing for the Brute. Now, it does end up getting focused down eventually, but not before they're able to pick up a massive advantage from just showing up to the fight at the right time. Now, we're going to rotate over again, because notice, we're just inside the placement threshold here, and Gentle is all by his lonesome, and this is what we talked about in the Middle East, how the gameplay tends to break down towards the end. People lose a little bit more of their teamwork compared to the other regions, and that's what allows Gentle to just out-survive the rest of the lobby, picking up a number of clutch elims at the end, which ends up pushing him up a difference of 9+ points there from the placements and the eliminations he was able to get, those final moments being enough to push them up into the grand final territory. Let's take a look at the standings, and I mean, you can see them right up there on the board as well. Just a great performance coming out, the results coming on here, and like, Again, my pick right there, Prime, Aflame, and Hunter, but also shout out to Obito, Nightmare, and Ranger for their great performance, the trio playing out of India. So again, I love seeing these different regions being able to go through. We will actually also see the next page as well, since the top 16 are the ones who are advancing, so you can see the line right there. And again, the one thing I want to note is the difference of how many in Fortnite, when all the little plays matter. Right here, the line, it's 1 point. That's one elimination. That's getting one other revive. That's finishing one other knock, but able to push through one-shot Soriana and Power RV. So honestly, the field is now set. Both of the trios who we predicted will be competing in the grand final tomorrow, and I'm excited because we'll get an opportunity to see some of those matches and crown our first ever Season X champion. So it's going to be great. We've seen a lot of Middle East so far. That's it for the games from them. We're going to throw it to a quick 5-minute break while we get ourselves situated, use the bathroom, do anything, go walk your dog real quick, get some water, get some food in you, because we're going to do the same, and then we'll be back with more Fortnite action.
Hello family of Fortnite, BallTW here, and throughout the Fortnite Champion Series, we're going to be trying to get more acquainted with the world of competitive Fortnite. Today, we're going to be discussing the 3 different stages of a competitive Fortnite game: the early game, the mid game, and the late game, and what different players have as their goals during these stages in order to achieve the ultimate goal, the Victory Royale. Let's start with the early game. Also called the looting phase, this is where all players are attempting to secure their chosen landing spot and maximize their loot potential. In competitive Fortnite, every game matters, so players try to strike a balance between high loot opportunity and safety so as to not waste a game by being eliminated early. Do you drop at a high loot POI like Retail Row or Paradise Palms? Or land at a safer POI on the edge of the map, where less players drop because of less loot? Regardless, the goal is common. Whether you take a passive approach by looting safely on the side of the map, or an aggressive and risky approach by letting others loot for you and finding early eliminations. Now that we know what the early game is, what should we be looking out for during this stage? First things first, being contested. The first realization players make when landing is whether you're being contested or not, to prepare for the upcoming possible fight. Trios want to try to force your opponent into the more disadvantageous position cut off from loot potential. Either they have to make a desperation push, or they're stuck with less loot where you can easily clean up. That's just the beginning, as even though it starts off high intensity with all the different POIs being contested, it quickly slows down as the rotations begin towards first zone. Looting doesn't end here, and most competitive players will have a loot path, which optimizes their possibility for finding the crucial mobility and weapon upgrades. Thanks to the new battle map feature in the replay mode, we can study these loot paths and rotations quite easily these days. So go check that out in any replay from the Fortnite Champion Series by going into the Compete tab and finding your favorite player. It will vary from game to game, but generally, we move into the mid game around the middle to end of second zone. The mid game is the calm before the storm. Before the storm circle gets too small where it forces the engagements. Most players' goals are positional, but in some cases, depending on how the early game went, you again have to strike a balance, this time between looting and farming, or going for the best position. Looting could include playing extremely aggressive to earn yourself other players' loot. In trios, it's much harder to play that aggressive playstyle, since fights take longer and cost more. You want to be efficient with any rotations or fights you have to take. You don't want to spend your precious mobility, valuable resources, or health. This is why you'll see a lot of the top players look directly for center zone in the mid game. When you're in the center zone, you end up giving yourself the most chance of being in the next storm circle when it gets revealed. You'll then have to go less distance and thus spend less materials. Finally, the end game. The most exciting, hectic, thrilling, and difficult part of competitive Fortnite. Experiencing an endgame can be confusing and hard to process, but it will also be one of the most rewarding and fun times to play and watch. This is when you take all the advantages you built in the early game and the mid game and use them to push yourself to a victory royale, and also find as many eliminations as possible. In the current Fortnite Champion Series format, every elimination matters, just like it did in the World Cup. From 6th zone onwards, where the calm from the mid-game explodes into a cacophony of tunneling, mobility usage, and shots being fired, you'll see teams go for the ever-so-advantageous high ground, where they can tunnel very cheaply and have the most opportunity on the rest of the server for elimination, as they have the top-down view. You'll also see teams call out the need to find a good layer, which is away from other players, both above, below, and horizontally from you. You'll see teams desperate for the extra materials to last them through to the full zone closure, going for impact eliminations, where they can top off on resources and power weaponry of their fallen opponents. So, whether you're watching or you're joining us on the field, take stock in the stage of the game. The early game, when you're trying to get the best possible loot while it's still available. The mid game, where you're balancing positioning while maintaining what you built during the early game. And finally, the end game, where you spend all the advantages you set yourself up with to earn the victory royale. Use this to form your game plan in order to earn as many series points weekend after weekend. And maybe next time, we'll be watching and highlighting your top plays. This was BallaTW, and I'll see you in game.
What's up, everyone? Sundown here to bring you the latest installment of Plays of the Week. The final opportunity to qualify for the Fortnite Champion Series happened over the weekend, and a number of players were able to push their way to the top and make some spectacular plays. Let's dive in and see who popped off. Kicking off Plays of the Week, we'll start with Kurtz down in South America as he lets no targets get away and says, "Not today." Staying down in South America, we're on board here with Nothing No Name as he's able to pull off the hot feet flank and get the positional advantage to pick up a number of elims. Next, popping over to the Middle East, we have M. Siddig on the tack attack, going to work and eliminating the rest of the lobby. Now normally we say jumping on over, but this time we mean it quite literally as 72 hours does the leapfrog to pick up an insane elimination. Staying over in NA East, we have the world champion solo player Booga, well, dropping his opponents down a level or two. Now, over to Europe as we watch Fnatic Provoked get himself out of a tight situation and be the lone survivor to run the rest of the lobby. Sometimes in Fortnite, you need to innovate a little bit, and right now Jordan uses everything in his toolkit to pick up 2 quick elims. And finally, over in NA West, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Rex getting his high ground shot out and going for a last-ditch effort to get everything he can. That's it for the top plays from the qualifiers, and the stage has been set as we head into the finals this weekend. Make sure to tune in at Fortnite.com/watch or in client, and we'll see you guys on the battle bus. Beep, beep. Welcome back, everyone, and I will just apologize for everything that happened over the past 90 seconds. I have no idea what any of that was. When Zeke and I get together for too long, we get, kind of a little crazy. But one thing in our end, we were able to resolve some of the issues going through with the scheduled matchmaking. That means we will have Brazil games coming up here in a second. In particular, I just want to talk about this region. This region is near and dear to my heart. One, because I called King placing top 5 in the solo at the World Cup. I said, you could pencil him in. This kid is something special. He plays aggressively, and he's going to bring it to the big stage. He is my hardline prediction for the top spot with X-Zone and Toxic. I think they're going to be able to run through. But Brazil in particular, if you haven't watched the region before, they play very differently from the others. Again, we talk about discipline when it comes to the late game. They're good at that. However, the early and mid-game aggression that comes out when they know that they're going to have an advantage on their opponent is utterly ridiculous. We saw a little bit of it coming out from Middle East, but Brazil takes that to a whole nother level. If they see somebody even remotely separated, they will go. They will burn utility to get there and close out the fight, because their thinking is that is a point and we can scavenge anything from them in order to get onto what we need. And I really think it's going to be a good one. You can see there, our predictions are actually a little all over the place. This is one of the few regions where there wasn't really a hardline victor. I would say Brazil and Asia are the two where you've definitively had 5 to 10 teams who can really end up compete coming through. I mean, you can see, as I said, I had King, X-Zone, and Toxic at the top. Zeke had Reds, Snow, Avalar, and Techno Viking. Showager picked Masteer, and then C9's Dracons and Blackouts. Monster D-Face had Nyx, D13, and Tuzu and Lupo picked Wishy, Kurtz, and Laleo. Now, one thing you'll notice from all of that, every single one of those teams either had a representative at the Fortnite World Cup in solos or duos, or they were right on the outside looking in both solos or duos. That would be the red squad right there. Techno Viking was one of the BR there. And now one thing I want to kind of talk about as we bring our casters back out is everyone kind of defending their prediction there. So I talked about why I think King is such a talented player in and of himself, and then being paired up with X-Zone, who had got to play on that stage, and then Toxic kind of complements them. But why did you think the red trio, Z?
Look, for me personally, we've seen the red trio quite a bit. We've seen Techno Viking off on his own with different types of dual partners, and then Avalar and Snow have always been paired together. Now the trio have come and been paired as, well, a trio. We've seen both of these as their separate duos almost make World Cup qualification on several different occasions, and Techno Viking was actually one placement away from making it in. So I think they've had enough time to kind of learn their strengths and weaknesses, and I think in their showing in week number 4, they led the pack by a significant amount. And I think because of that, they have the pieces, man. They just have to put it all together. It just has to be their weekend of Fortnite.
That's a good point there. Now, the reason I picked my trio specifically, I just wanted to kind of study who was being consistent over the weekends and not necessarily pick a top dog. I wanted to pick someone who's been in the running, been kind of in the question pool, right? Kind of there, but not quite first place. So it's kind of why I went with Nyx and those boys there. Just personally, just wanted to give someone else a small shout out.
Man, I'm a big fan of Nyx. Huge shout out to Nyx.
I mean, I'm a fan of the region. As I said, Brazil elevated themselves, getting some additional heat play going in there from the range. But the games are ready to go. Enough from me. We'll throw it on over to these 5 gentlemen as we go down under to South America and we begin their very first heat. Monster, Z, take it away, guys.
Let's do it, baby. It's time to hop into BR. I cannot wait. Well, Brazil, actually, let's be more specific. This is a dope region. We constantly see new things coming out of Brazil, new players that show up, but then we see a lot, like you said, Monster, a lot of consistencies. The C9, Dracons, Blackouts, Nyx, the Red Trio. There's so much talent, raw talent in Brazil, and this is, for me, another region that we just haven't quite seen their full potential, right? I think there could be some upsets coming out of Brazil this weekend.
Oh, without a doubt. This weekend's really going to shine the light on the region as a whole, and that's what we've been wanting for a while. The World Cup kind of series really took off for them, and we got to see some rising stars, but it really wasn't enough. This region as a whole now getting much more, I guess, recognition, and that is what we want to kind of just let unfold here and let that story speak for itself. But jumping into the game, we're looking at Snobby Shores area. We haven't quite seen much of today specifically. We have Choi, Hype, and Sitnoff here setting up for a battle. And there's a team here. And look at the way they landed. They landed right in the middle. The other squad is poised up just outside from both angles here, Zeke.
This is going to mean there's quite a bit of loot disparity for this trio that landed in this one house, right? Because top side, you got that one person in the solo house. All that loot is his. The duo below them, there's a little less loot in that abandoned house. But now they can kind of go for the pincer attack. So the guys in the middle, they just have to push, right? They have to say, we're going either north or we're going south. We just have to try and make something happen. I like
Zeke,
the Choi.
It's actually a 2v1 on both sides right here as both teams are collapsing on the players respectively. You can just see Hyped is in a battle of his own. Sitnoff and Choi have to get this exchange off here or it's going to spell trouble for them. Hype's already fell down. If they don't close this battle out soon, the other trio is going to rotate in really quickly.
They need to down this player now because they are starting their move. If you watch the minimap, we've already got this enemy trio. They're starting to close in. This other enemy just has to buy enough time. They're doing a great job of it as well, just keeping the builds away. We even hear a shockwave ring out, so they are closing in on Choi and Sitnoff. They will drop one of the players. Looks like okay, so they drop RDWA. Yeah, then the mats are going to be important, but again, there's not much in the way of the loot. Still with the infantry rifle, the attack is going to be what he relies on. Ooh, great pickup here in the tactical SMG. There's going to be quite a bit of burst damage here in the beginning of the game.
Oh boy, it's Emmerich who gets chipped off by Sitnoff right there, who's biding time, playing nice and patient, and now suddenly he can also see the toes right there. He can see Poseidon. Oh wait, he actually doesn't quite notice him just under that build right there, but Sitnoff gets the siphon off, so now he's got the health. Wait, is Sitnoff going to take the shot? He should be able to see it. There it is. He did miss, unfortunately. He tries to go for a quick peek there. A nice little ramp pivot. He's going to keep this player alive here. So Poseidon has to make a big move. If he doesn't, he's going to spell trouble here for himself. There it is. He's got to commit to this battle. Couldn't quite get the trade off there. And Choi, Sitnoff and Hype walk away victorious. But all because they got collapsed on. It was almost the end for them. That battle was kind of extended for a second there. They were building off. It wasn't looking like it was going to go in their favor for a second there.
Yeah, hopefully they can get Hyped card. That way they can try and play for a reboot, but it just depends on kind of what the rotation looks like. It might be unlikely depending on the situation they find themselves in later. Now take a look. They are pretty close to the next zone. So there is a possibility, but I don't know, man. It's not looking great.
No, they're fine. They're fine. Remember, everything is just getting kicked off here. So Sitnoff I think he used the shockwave to pick up that card. Now they're just getting their farm on before they move over to this reboot van here. And they actually have somewhat of a favorable zone here because the next zone is only pushing just east of them. So they'll be okay. You can see a little bit of a snippet there. They should be able to get this res off no problem, and that's going to wrap up this battle here in Snobby.
It's going to be pretty good for them. At least we hope so. But of course, as always, there's action happening all over the map. Up on Viking Village, we can see another trio here. So Cab was actually sitting on the mountain. If you were watching the mini-map, he was actually looking down on them as that whole fight happened. He could have potentially gone for a heavy snipe, but they were on the back half of the Snobby houses, so there's like really not great line of sights for that. But I mean, his loadout's looking pretty good for this early game. And again, he's not that far from rotation. It looks like a little bit of a split drop there. So one of his trios, excuse me. Would you call, if you're talking about a trio, and you're talking about one of the three, would you refer to the other two as the duo? Because then it just sounds weird. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I struggle with it a little bit. Sometimes I do a little bit of both just to play it safe. But it does roll off really naturally, right? When you say his duos.
Yeah.
Because like those are like his.
But then I don't like to confuse people. These are the things that genuinely keep me up at night. Is how do I best communicate to viewers what's happening? Real talk. Anyway, though, we got two of these trios coming together. They've reformed. It looks like there's actually shockwaves. All right, so a nice stack of 6. That's what you like to see.
Into the inventory. Yeah, he's capped out here, and there's extra splashes there, so their teammate Novice should be able to kind of pick those up for them. This is one of the splits I like about the Viking Village. It hasn't changed. You get that Shambles house. You get the two house on the coast. Sometimes you even get the crack shot house over at the Frosty Flights area. So there's a lot of opportunity for loot here if you play off the Viking area, especially if you split up and it's uncontested. And that's why their loadouts are so nice right now. They actually had a fair amount of loot split between themselves. So now looking to rotate just outside of Greasy. You hear the music going off. Cavs is just keeping eyes on it, seeing if he can catch a peek or something.
I mean, he does have the heavy snipe, so if he does get eyes on someone, he could very well drop them, especially in taco time, right? Because you're kind of you're dancing, right? You're gaining back that HP. Potentially, if you get lucky and you go ahead and grab one of those tacos first, remember you get that extra movement speed, so you could be running around at max speed. There is also this little unique spot where you could potentially find some foraged items. We have eyes on targets.
I love it. Cavs marked him out, so he's probably going to wait until one of these guys try and take a consumable. Looks like he has eyes on this first player out front. That's a nice spot. Can he line him up here? Doesn't look like he's going to... Oh, he does connect and follow up with the perfect 2-shot AR follow-up. It was actually really clean, too, right? The angle that he had, the wall just wasn't enough. The reaction was swift. It was quick. He got hit. He threw a wall up, but he was at just the perfect side angle, and that's why you have to box up all of your sides here. Even with the shield bubbles coming down now, the fight is going to happen here. They're going to collapse. Love how Cavs is taking the wide angle here, looking for all eyes on sight. He knows the revive isn't quite happening yet because he can see one of the players in front of him waiting for his team, playing super patient here. And actually, oh, I lied.
Yeah,
the revive did go off.
Yeah, I was going to say,
the shield bubble.
Once the shield bubble did come out, they should have immediately gone for the revive because that would have been the best play, right? Because you know they have to make it inside your bubble if they hope to do damage.
Ooh,
the revive did come out.
Explode action right there. That's a lot of pressure right here, Zeke.
More explodes are just going to kind of fracture builds all the way around. Right now, Novice is just trying to get shots out. Now, they will find Wendell here in the crossfire. So now it is a 2v1 right now. And just looking at the HP bars on the left, look at that. Gubu and Wendell are down. One player tried to shockwave out. That is Trimbala. It's not looking good because right now Cavs is on the offensive. Another shockwave used on both ends. Now, keep in mind, he does also have the heavy sniper. So if he gets too far or he has an angle, he could go for the heavy snipe. But I like that he's saying, look, you know what? We've got two. We don't know who else is around us. We've been making quite a bit of noise. We just need to take what we've got and let this guy go. It doesn't matter. It's better to just kind of hunker down, find their loot, and reassess, and chase something down and potentially be picked off by a third party, right?
100%. That was a great disengage right there. Just says, you know what? You can get away with your life. You're probably not going to make it far anyways being by yourself in this trio format, but they did not expend a lot at all either. And mainly because Cavs just played the patient. He waited for his team to come up. He knew that they had the advantage, and they got there just in the nick of time, especially with that double slow. That pressure was just ridiculous. There was no way they were going to get out of there alive. So lovely engagement for them. Now we're hopping over to the other side of the map here. We're back center map just under the meteor. There are players all over the place at factories, the divot, or I should say the dusty depots. Here you have this team just rotating across the middle, trying to find their way to zone right now.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the minimap for just a moment, so we know it's not completely cluttered just yet, so they will kind of have a moment where they can kind of decide the rotation, but just watch this lower minimap, right? So we have this information. They don't. So we know there's a trio up on their left that they're moving directly toward, that are making their way around this current little mountain, and then there's one already posted up in the house just north of there. It's smart that they're going up because it's going to give them more kind of like an Overwatch style, right? Like they can kind of look around and say, what is going on as far as the eye can see? The trio there was on the left. It was the blue triangles we see. So right now, the current safe zone is around Loot Lake. So it depends on kind of where we go from here, because they could use that in Infinite Rift inside the Shattering Dome there. But I don't think that's always the best play, because you either have like a lot of people going for that, or you can just kind of rift out in strange positions and like potentially take a bunch of storm damage. We'll have to see. Is that a person standing still? Were they gargoyling?
Yeah, they opened up that cone there, trying to look for some shots, and that heavy sniper came out real quick. He was trying to see if he can find one here. Remember, they're only just a couple. Okay, so one of them managed to hit a tag off, and that one's going to be another tag right there. It's going to catch him a full knock. Remember, Storm Surge is in effect here. We're looking at Brazil, Heat 1, Game 1. These lobbies are usually the first couple, maybe the first 3 games are the most passive, right? That's why we're seeing Storm Surge. 80 players remaining on this rotation here. 300 damage now above the threshold. So that one elim right there was crucial to keeping them in the game and keeping them safe for that matter.
Yeah, man. A little more loot to kind of divvy out to your trio. We do have other sets of trios, though, very close. We got one straight across the way, some closer on those little islands around Loot Lake. There's even a trio right behind them that looks like they might have eyes on them trying to close the gap. And there's a supply drop that just happened to hit the map, so maybe they could try to contest that. I don't know. Feels very dangerous. Look, another trio coming in from the bottom right around that mountain. So again, man, we're sitting on 78 players in the lobby. This is insane, right? Because right now, you're trying to get a feel for the game. You're trying to see, like, okay, where am I landing? Am I having people being contesting me? Because remember, these are dedicated games, right? So these are heats. Just in case you weren't familiar with the format or anything like that, these are players have worked really hard to make it into these heats. There's an amount of heats per region, and there's kind of like, you know who's going to be in your heat, right? So if you're someone that's like, look, I've been playing against this enemy trio this entire time. I know they always go retail row. And if you decide I have to go retail row as well, that's going to be like information you have beforehand, but then you have to like figure out, are we trying to fight those guys? Do we need to change our plans? Like, what do we want to do here?
Yeah, that's one of the perks of knowing exactly who's in your lobby, and one of the cons too, right? Because then at that point, other teams that just prepare better can set up these huge counter strats to you and your team per se. But don't forget, guys, again, right now Storm Surge should be absolutely in effect right here. 75 players remaining. The Zone 3 is already revealed, and that's why you see the kind of shots coming out here. This is desperate here. Only 50 damage above the threshold. Nice knock right there. He's going to catch Lucas here. Jossman, can he get the convert? And he is, because it's going to land right on top of Champion. His teammate is going to turn that down into a point there. Nice little pressure right here. Can they get this last player? Oh, these guys are hurt here, Zeke. You can see Mystics now getting pressured out. Nicholas also really hurt. They both have these players on whites here. Champion's going to get a huge chunk shot right there. He's going to get pumped. He's going to get traded out, though. That was really close. He's under the ramp. Let's go for it again. Gauntless takes a shot right there. This player is not going down without a fight. Nicholas nearly clutching up.
I like that Gon here, the moment that he fell down, he placed the ramp as like a defensive measure, but it was like guaranteeing that this enemy player could not send a shot out with their shotgun. Because if they had, it's very possible he could have been one pump depending on what shotgun they had, or at least definitely chunked out Gon. But they worked it out, right? Like, and now they have access to all their loot. And they're probably feeling pretty good after being the ones that, like, kind of won the hill and seeing the next zone. They're, like, right there on the edge. So they just want to take a moment, kind of recoup. They have plenty of things like the splashes. We've got the campfire ticking here as well. But the campfire is going to be a pretty big telling fact to everyone else around them. Like, hey, there's someone wounded in here to the point where they have to burn a campfire, right? So looks like no one's going to contest.
There's still plenty of loot, too. There's still plenty of loot.
Knuckles.
So Knuckles comes in. He had no health. It's going to be such a freebie for them. He kind of just handed that one over. He said, hey, I'm right here. Come take me out, man. Take this point. He's back to the lobby right away. And that's just a beautiful pickup for them at this point. Now they have tons of material to spare at that point, being that they just got a nice drop-up for themselves. And look at this loadout. He's got 4 shockwaves. He's got the heals. He's got the infantry rifle. It's quite the loadout right here. It's somewhat of a pack-a-punch loadout, I like to call it, because it's all offense. Pump shotgun, infantry rifles, no fast-fire weapons in his loadout.
Yeah, and with the unvaulting of the silenced AR, it looks like they're going to opt to leave it behind. I like the silence. Dude, I was literally going to say, I love, and once we vaulted, I was like, man, I missed that weapon so much. It's so precise. It's very deadly in the right hands. But they're saying, you know what, we don't need it. We've got our gold infantry rifle. That is what we're going to make do with. I'm curious to see now where we go here. Where's the next zone? We're about to be revealed here in just 2 seconds. All right, so more closer inward, of Loot Lake. We're going to see...
look at this. They're lining up the double snipe.
Didn't come through.
It was just a snipe AR follow-up. He didn't quite connect, though. But a valiant effort there. Santos, Only, and Lucan here just kind of hanging out. A little test fire on the weapon there. Not quite sure what happened for a second.
He was just shooting out in the world. Hey, pow pow. Yeah, we're here. We're dangerous.
A couple shots out there.
You know what's interesting, though? Based on, like where we are, don't forget there is that kind of dome around the very central part of that infinite rift there in the middle. And if you're walking through that, you will be in low gravity. So kind of navigating around this can be difficult, right? Like if you're jumping, you're going to be a huge target, right? Because those arcs are very easy to track. So if they're going to opt to, like, make this rotation, like, they want to be trying their best not to jump. He's trying to find the last person. Oh.
Yeah, and he was actually using the strat where you go in the water and you kind of aim your camera up, try to see if you can, you know, single out this player, see if you can catch those pixels. He was right. Like, he was spot on, but Yoinkmeister kind of slid just out of that range, and he knows he's nearby. He saw him for a second before, so I guess he's figuring now, like, oh, there you are, buddy. Got behind the wall there, and oh man, he was so kitted out. Legendary AR, legendary shotguns. It's gonna be a big upgrade for this trio right here.
And now here we go, man. The circle's moving. They need to get themselves in.
Awkward. They're gonna go with the launch pad up and out. So that's a slow pad because of the, you know, rift effect from the zone there. I love what they're doing here. They're going to mark up this rock. This rock is indestructible, so they can actually kind of poise up perfectly just beside it here. That's going to set them up real nice for another zone. And they're in the middle. There's a good chance they'll get this next half in and half out zone, being that they're dead center right now.
Yeah, and I mean, in some instances, it's like, why did you burn a launch pad there to kind of get this rotation? But don't forget that it is low gravity, so it's going to give you like a higher arc, so you can actually get a little bit farther. I like that they did it. I hope they have a follow-up launch pad, but they do also have, you know, other utility items in their kits. We'll have to see how things go for them a little bit later on. Don't forget, top 12 is when the first round of placement points get divvied up, so we're just over halfway there. Now the question becomes, where is this next zone, right? Because that's going to pretty much dictate where everyone else has to go and how they're going to try to move. We already see, like, there's a bunch of trios taking fights. They're on the right side of your screen. We see a bunch of people fall. So we're actually going back where we came from.
Oh, no.
This is tough. This is going to be a little tough for these players, especially on the very edge of the zone. The ones that are kind of already there and established is going to be better for them, but we'll have to see how they make do. Hyped, though, is going to find himself quite a bit of loot.
He needs that shotgun, too. He's only got a blue tack right here. He is going to catch the edit, catch this player off guard, though. And it's Nox has Donuts who gets taken out right there. Was caught slipping for a second there, and this is actually more importantly, besides how far they have to rotate, most of the zone right now is actually in the rift zone, in the low gravity zone. It's going to be such a tough place to fight. I've actually seen some interesting strategies where players use cones to cut across, and you put a cone, you edit real quick, and then you move cone to cone.
Yeah.
Instead of not necessarily ramp boosting, but like hiding under the cones in a way. It tends to work, but I don't know if that's really possible when you have this many players left. So we'll see how these pros pretty much figure it out and make the best of this situation, because this is going to be a tough one right here.
You could even try to go for height, right? And then even if you got shot down, you kind of are falling in low gravity, you can try to reconnect. But just trying to to stay away from players down below and kind of let them fight it out amongst themselves. Unfortunately, Choi and Sidnoff will be picked up, and height is okay, 2 HP. He needs to find someone running here with low HP as well. 70 effective HP. If a stink grenade goes out, he will be eliminated. Fall damage will take him back to the lobby. He's got to be real careful right now, man. He has, he needs another 7 trios to go down to hit the first round of placements. And right now, they are on 4 points, which is really good, but that extra placement points could make the difference later on. I mean, he's already getting
pressured. A lot of pressure coming from below him. He is the focus point of the server right now. This is not where you want to be. He tries to go back up another layer here. The heavy snipe was unsuccessful, and he is going to get taken out in that moment of hiccup right there. So, unfortunate for him, he's probably doomed from the start after he lost that much health. That team kind of knew he was there. He did make a move on them and was unsuccessful before that. So, that's why he's going to get taken out here. But hopping over with team only, you can see they've managed to rack up a ton of elims. They're sitting really nice, again, as we look at that loadout. Shockwaves and all sorts of heals here. And it's actually coming back out. So look for them. They're cutting out of the low gravity zone here. This is exactly what you hope would happen. You don't want it to go any deeper than that. You also don't even want to hit the rift at this point either. It could be too much of a risk, too much of a risk. If you go in there, you're going to throw yourself in the air. You have the potential to get chucked out to the zone. You just really don't want to risk it at this point. So everyone's probably going with a ground foot rotation here. Nice little ramp play right there. Throws it in their face. Fizen is going to get shot there. Let's see if he can convert. Nope. The mobility is forced out now.
Okay, well, that wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't the worst. But at least it's going to keep Zin alive here right now. Lux here is also not in the best position, neither is Neo, but look up on top. You've got a trio that's holding it down from above, but everyone else that has kind of been trying to rotate kind of later, you can just see their health bars, man. They are just going down right now. Zin, again, he got chunked out because we were on him for a little bit. unfortunately, more of his HP is going to go down, but his trio's still alive. They're now in close proximity to each other, so they can try and, like, come up with a better plan of attack. And now, based on where we're moving, we are kind of going where we came from, but they're not going to be in the low grab zone. Oh, that was a massive chunk. That was
he's just
good.
Constantly eating little bits and chips of zone here. Is he going to make the quick edit? He's got to find an Elim right now. He's got to find himself back in this game here. All he has to do is convert on a couple Elims, get that siphon. With all the fighting going on right next to him, yes, exactly. Put that sniper away. Just get those shots. Turn those into health right here. That's what you have to do. Zin is still fighting for his life right here. He's actually out of AR ammo now, so he needs these right here. That's going to be one right there. Can he find another? Can't even jump in because there's a trap there. He's in the worst possible situation. He has the health, he has the Elims, but he doesn't have anything else to back it up. No ammunition. Working his way over to Luke. Luke's going to go down. Can he get the exchange here? Is that wall his? The real question. He's just waiting, biding time here. Makes the edit. He could not find it. This is a very intense situation for him. He has to go down to low ground. Huge 180 right there, Zeke.
It's okay. He's got plenty of HP.
Can't even shoot through the wall. Look.
Well, he has more builds now, so he did find some. It's not much, though, Monster. He does have just 11 slugs left. He's got to try and make these shots count. He's got to find one. A pickaxe elimination! What in the world? Look at the ammo! Monster, he's in a much better position. 600 AR rounds. He only has 10 shotgun shells left, though. That's not a ton to work with. Zin, he's going to try it with the world on his back. He's not reloaded,
though. He's like, nothing's reloaded. He really has to reload here, but there's only one person left. It's a 1v1 right now. This guy has shockwaves. He's got a lot going on. Nice low ground peek right there. Zin did not hit it. Does manage to take the high ground, though, because the side jump was unsuccessful, and he still has the high ground. So I think the player below him has no materials, but neither does he. Here it is. It's a 50-50 shot. No AR reloaded. That's what I talked about. But he hits the flick shot on Raquel right there, and Zin wins the exchange in the final moments.
Dude, 13 eliminations, 15 points from the Victory Royale. Zin, what a legend, fighting through all adversity to find him and his trio the Victory Royale. You love to see it. Brazil never disappoints. But for now, we're going to send it back into the studio with Dr. Lupo and Sundown.
It is, in fact, true. You love to see it. Now that we have these games rolling, Brazil, game one down, this heat, and we want to take a look at the leaderboard just to see, after all of that, where everyone stands. You have to remember the 6 games queued up, Sundown, so this is only the beginning of how things are going to roll out, but the leaderboard, obviously, always relevant, always important, and always poignant, you know? It's one of those things. You got to keep track of everybody, right?
At every stage of the game, particularly when it is 6 matches, you have to know where you're standing within the rest. And we'll see right here off of the top, it was that 28 points, the Victory Royale, plus the 13 Elims, capping it out there from NYU, Luke, and PH Zin. So very well done from them there. And I mean, they're going to be able, and one thing to note here as well, because in Brazil, we were watching Middle East earlier where the top 16 advance, Brazil is bumped up into that next tier of regions. So the top 8 will be the ones advancing. So as we flip on over to the next page, you can already see there's a huge disparity from the top to bottom. So if you're able to even get on the board, one Elim is putting you within that distance, and it's only the first game. And also there were a couple of teams who were missing through this, so it's only going to get that much more difficult. The pace of this is only going to pick up that much more as we continue going forward. And we're going to dive into some of the plays that happened in this game to see kind of what went down and what led to the 13 elimination Victory Royale, because that is a huge jump. 28 points, as we saw before, is enough to really put you in that contention, and we should be good. But I mean, right now, as you can see, like, nobody is out of this. Even the teams who are unable to make it into that first match, they are capable of pushing forward. So Brazil showing that there is still much more to come on the table. And honestly, I'm excited again because we get an opportunity today to focus in on regions who don't necessarily normally get as much limelight, and they're capable of making some ridiculous plays. But also, we're seeing much more variance in the end games. We're seeing it kind of, I don't want to say devolve, but it breaks down where players aren't able to necessarily stick with the buddy. And generally, 2 people is enough to run out the rest of the lobby, as we saw from the power trio in Middle East. But even now, if it's just going down to a solo situation, can you imagine the Discord calls when you're the one to clutch up, when you know, hey, there's 4 people left, and all of a sudden you win a 1v1, you win another 1v1. I mean, I get pumped when I win a regular arena game, like, let alone the fact that these guys are sitting here in the finals and watching a run like that.
These are some of the most competitive games we've seen. Even referencing back to the World Cup, you have to realize that there's a big difference between what we've seen now, because it's trios. It's a different situation. It's a different set of players and just a different play style in general. Now, I do have a question before we jump into these replays. Sundown, during the World Cup qualifiers, we saw Brazil really show up with highly aggressive gameplay. A lot of those players were dropping really high elimination games. Do you expect to see the same thing in solos and duos carry over here in trios throughout these 6 games?
So in trios, you tend to find different pockets of eliminations. It's not necessarily constantly going through, where in solos and duos, a player is able to really sometimes go and pick out, like King, for example. If he sees someone, he's going to go because he knows in his head he's better than that player. So he'll take that fight every time. Your opportunities to get those picks in trios just because there's less people there. But as we saw even in the Middle East games, if somebody gets segmented and you have 2 or 3 people, that's enough to go and respond and at least force utility out. So we'll see the fights and see what happens. And the replay package is ready now. So we're going to hop in to some of those plays and see actually what went down in the early and the mid game. So this is one example right away of that aggression you're talking about, where Zin, they're able to get pressure over towards their opponents, get tags, and then separate somebody, right? You notice they're pinching from each one of the sides, and they're looking to try and cut off one of the enemy teammates from the rest of his team, so then you can attack from 2 sides at once. And in trios, it becomes that much more effective because you're able to split out. And even if somebody gets down, if you're able to convert, the pressure then is on the opponent to try and chase. Now you can see Gonlias getting a good edit and then dropping the pump shot through to help out with his teammate, putting the fish stick skin to good use, and then following up with really good rifle support to make sure they're getting the shots over there. I mean, that is what you want to be looking for, making sure you're backing up your teammate, and that's kind of the team fight situations you talk out. Now, Riquelme getting a good angle with that suppressed SMG. You're seeing a lot less of it now that the TAC has been back, but he's able to then rock it out with the Great TAC, picking up a number of elims there, and then consciously deciding to go up a level, knowing he has limited mats, but elevating just up 1 more and allowing him to pick up a number of elims and push into a better situation. But unfortunately, a little bit lower on mats, is forced to drop down and enter into the fray, as you can see here. But with his advantage in picking up the elim there, he continues to run it out. However, with PH Zin, that pickaxe elim, he knew he had already hit him for 180. Take the guarantee. You can't miss that shot. It has the widest breadth. And then here, sometimes you don't have to be the best. Sometimes you don't have to hit all your shots. You just need to be slightly better than the person across from you.
It's that last one that is most important.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a battle royale. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. You just got to get the job done and eliminate the person against you. But now, Lupo, I think we're going to head into the next matches.
Indeed, we are. My friend, thank you very much for joining us up here on stage. Yeah, we have more Brazil just around the corner. If you're watching at home, make sure you're going out on Twitter. People know what's going on here. If you see any crazy clips, make sure you're tagging us every single time. But we're going to throw back to the casters, make sure that they're aware it is go time for the next game. Gentlemen, if you could please join me on stage.
That's weird. I could have swore it was
Zeke, Sundown, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we're up now. All right.
Teleportation technology right there, all the way over to the other side, but got the dynamic duo back at it to continue with the Brazil games, and we all know who the better robot is here because we all know Zeke's a bot. I'm sorry, no, come on back out. He definitely does a better robot than me, and that's all I'm going to say there. But after, what were your thoughts on the first match?
I really enjoyed it, man. I love watching Brazil. They are just so incredibly aggressive and very technical. Edits, rotations, rifling skills, they bring it all to the table. I kind of touched on it earlier with Monster, but I still think we haven't seen their maximum skill ceiling. I still think they have so much more they're going to offer and show us over the next few days. And eventually, I think there could be an upset for the season champion. We have made some predictions, but I think there could be an upset.
I mean, there's the potential there. We've seen the consistent teams going through, but match number 2 is ready, so let's get on to the battle bus, drop on in, check out those drop spots, and keep the South American action rolling down in Brazil. You can see that bus pass coming through right now, the Meteor, also known as Tfue spot, and we are moving from east to west.
Gente, después de esta partida que van a dar, ahorita ya van a terminar el directo para jugar, porque quiero jugar ya. Para la nueva tienda. Vamos a ver la nueva tienda. 2 minutos. pasó bastante tiempo. Puede que... Voy a abrir el micrófono. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, new chop.
So well executed. Clip note is just insane.
Hasta la
Are you
próxima,
serious?
gente.
What is
Una llama.
this game on lock right now? But even going back to that moment when Clip note decided to go in and he heard the player, they launched out, his control, like he started setting shots over and his bloom was a little bit wider, and then he just, you saw him like for a moment took a deep breath, immediately reset his first shot, and it was just like blink.